Oh, I did see this. This is cute. This is actually cute. And much better than the food he was eating that I saw on Twitter. This is very cute. After spending 49 days in Gaza as a hostage. Also, Hassan is a buy. Please don't ever send me Visegrad tweets ever again. Come on, dog. This is like the fucking psychotic far-right racist Polish Twitter account. Like you can source this video from elsewhere. You know what I mean? But yeah, this is a good moment. It's very cute. You think that the other 9-year-olds were like, man, I didn't actually like Ohad that much, but now we're just hanging out with him. Like, I feel like if I was in his shoes, like in Ohad's shoes, when I watched this, the first thing I thought of was like an unearned sense of love that you get in situations like this that feels disingenuous, like being on your birthday. You know what I mean? Like all the people that your family is friends with from your class come and participate in this like experience, even though technically you're like, I don't really fuck with these kids. You know what I mean? Like, oh shit. Avi, you need to see a therapist. I know. I'm brain broken. Also, you said they're too young for that, but like, no, that's like precisely precisely the age that I'm talking about when I was like 9 and 10. Incredibly insecure, where I was just like, oh God, I hate this birthday party. Like all these people I think hate me, and why the fuck are they here? And now they have to like say happy birthday to me.
Shalom.
אתה רוצה ללכת הצידה לדבר?
בוא נלך וניתן לו לדבר איתו קצת זמן. בוא.
That, bro, give me the fucking iPad, dog. 49 days without an iPad. 49 days without an iPad. Give me the goddamn iPad. I want to see the new Fortnite update. I want to watch Pokemon. I don't know what's going on. He's like, I love Jinxie. What's he up to? Is he playing Rainbow Six?
כמה דקות שידבר איתו.
Dude, there have been 11 renditions of Skibidi Toilet that I missed out on. I need to catch up immediately, okay? I need to catch up on the Skibidi Toilets, brother. What the hell? But yeah, no, it's good stuff. I'm glad that some of the hostages have been returned so far. There have been really, I mean, there have been great videos from the Palestinian side as well of just like people returning to their homes, and then an incredible amount of racism. Holy shit! Just like a incredible amount of racism on like these guys are all terrorists. Like I can't believe these rapist, terrorist, baby murdering monsters have returned to home. And then you look at like what their rap sheet is, and first like you have to contextualize all of the hostage releases on the basis that this is like being done like on the Israeli side. You have to contextualize it. You have to frame it around this being an apartheid regime, and therefore these are military tribunals with a 97.9% conviction rate, and most of these charges are conducted on secret evidence or simply suspicions under a process known as indefinite detention, which is illegal, right? So when you realize that, and then you look at like the Times of Israel justifications as to why these people have been like arrested, it's almost always vibes based. Like obviously there's literally, there's obviously like real crimes that have occurred as well that would be considered real crimes under a civil governance too, except there is no civil governance, right? For Palestinians existing under the Israeli occupation in the West Bank. So you look at that, situation, and you watch people coming back. You watch the Palestinian families coming back, and then you see like all of these commenters being like, dude, these fucking rapist, baby murdering monsters, like, I can't believe they released them. This is a fucking failure. This is awful. It's so terrible. And then people will be like, and then people will look at like what they've done, and their rap sheet is literally like suspicion that he or she stabbed or wanted to stab someone, and I could see it in her eyes. And it's unironically that. Like, you look at their, like, the lady that was, that lady who returned home after like 6 years of being arrested and like being held under indefinite detention. And people are like, well, she tried to stab someone. And it's like, but then you look at the actual, case file, and it just straight up says she was at a bus stop and a settler claimed she wanted to stab someone. And there was no evidence for it whatsoever, and they still fucking arrested her and placed her under indefinite detention for 6 years. And it's like, that's crazy, man. It's like, it's nuts. It's nuts. But the way that it's being talked about, on the Israeli side, from all the people who are like very frustrated that a single Palestinian has been even released from indefinite detention is so crazy. Where they're like, this is a false equivalence. You cannot equivocate the morality of like Palestinians being released to the hostages being released on the Israeli side. Like the hostages released on the Israeli side are like babies and children, and then the hostages being released on the Palestinian side they're all monsters. They're bloodthirsty. They're all fucking they're prisoners. And it's like, dude, please just exercise a little bit of critical thinking. And try to think about it from the framework of like, how would you feel if this was a 13-year-old Israeli child? Like, would you want that 13-year-old Israeli child to be held in solitary confinement and tortured and have confessions extracted under torturous conditions, which are all, human rights abuses? Like, these are violations of international humanitarian law. And then you have this situation where, like, in occupied Jerusalem, you're not even allowed to celebrate. Itamar Ben-Gvir has made celebrations illegal. Now, they can't contain the celebrations of the West Bank for the Palestinians that are released because, they don't have the smoke for it. They're spread a little too thin right now because there's the ongoing siege in Gaza. Right? But in Jerusalem, they have the internal police force and the Palestinian Authority and everyone else, like, basically operating or collaborating together. Maybe not Palestinian Authority as much, but the security forces are following Itamar Ben-Gvir's request to ensure that there's no celebrations whatsoever for the prisoners being released, for the hostages being released on the Palestinian side. Look at them. They're saying Allahu Akbar, which is, of course, a call sign for terrorism. It's great news, but do you know why Hamas is releasing more than the agreed amount of hostages? They've cut separate deals with different governments. So the Thai hostages that were released have nothing to do with Israel. They cut a separate deal with the Thai government. That's not been confirmed. No, the Thai hostages are not a part of the Israeli deal. Don't say that. People believe you. What do you mean? Oh, the Allahu Akbar thing. Yeah. The Thai prisoners, the Thai hostages, were released separately. He said that he was neither tortured nor assaulted, and he'd been fed good food. He was very well taken care of. The sister of a Thai captive who was released from Gaza speaks about his experience there.
ครั้งแรกเพื่อนเขาบอกว่าโดนยิงเสียชีวิตในแคมป์ทั้งหมด10
I thought he was among the 16 shot dead.
คือมีวิทูลอยู่ในนั้นด้วยค่ะทางบ้านก็
Our family was very sad.
ไม่เป็นอันทำอะไรเลย
แต่คือตอนนี้พอข่าว
ค่ะส่งศพกลับมาทั้งหมด
But when they
แล้ว
sent the
ยังไม่
bodies
มี
back,
รถ
he
กลับ
wasn't
มา
there.
ก็เลยคือแบบ
I'm very happy because my hope was very dim.
จู่ๆเราความหวังเราก็ริบหรี่แล้วเนาะคิดว่าเป็นตัวประกันเขาจะปล่อยก็ได้ไม่ปล่อยก็ได้เขาจะทรมานเขาจะ
He's a
ฆ่าทิ้
hostage.
ง
He
ใน
might be in the
อุโม
tunnels,
งค์
but
น่ะก็ไม่
suddenly
มีใค
there's
รรู้
hope.
ค่ะ
ดีไหมคะ
ขึ้นยิ้มแย้ม
His
แจ่
face
ม
was
ใส
very
จน
happy, and he
พี่คิด
seemed
ว่า
okay.
เขาอะ
I
ส
mean,
ภาพ
did
จิต
she
ใจน่าจะ
did
โอ
she
เคค่ะ
contact him? Did she talk
พี่
to
ก็
him?
ถามว่า
He
เขา
said that he
เอา
was
ไป
not
เขาไม่
tortured
ท
or
รมานไหม
assaulted.
น้องบอกว่าไม่เขาไม่ได้ทรมานเลยเขาไม่ได้ทำร้ายร่างกาย แล้วกับข้าวน้ำอะไรกิน
And
ป
have
ก
been
ติ
fed
เขาบ
good
อกอ้าว
food.
แต่อยู่ในอุโมงค์แค่นั้นเอง
อืมคือเขาก็ดูแลดีใช่ไหมคะ
ดูแลดี
He
ส
was
ภาพร่างกาย
taken
ก็
care of
ไม่ได้
very
โทรม
well.
ไม่ได้อิดโรย
For the record, Allahu Akbar just means God is
เสื้อ
great.
ผ้าเขาไม่ได้
And that's it. That's what it is. It's not, don't be a racist piece of shit.
เปื้อน
Twitter
ก็
video is
ดู
so
เหมือน
bad.
ค
It
น
looks
ที่
like you
พัก
just
อยู่
stayed in a house,
ใน
not a
ใน
tunnel.
บ้านในอะไรทั่วไปเหมือนไม่ใช่อยู่ในอุโมงค์
Thank you, Little Bear, for accepting all the Okay Buddy memes. Yeah, I saw that the Jewish Journal wrote an article that was like, ironically, doing tropes. The inside story of how Palestinians took over the world. From the people that experienced the Jews control the world. Here is how about it was Palestinians that control the world all along. Allahu Akbar just means God is great. Okay, it's just like the same as saying Hallelujah. It's just a thing that you say in celebration or even, I mean, it's a thing that you say in shock. I don't fucking know. I mean, it's just a thing you say. I don't know. You say it for everything. It just means it could be like praise be, thank God. It's similar to that. So yeah, we'll do this in a second. I don't even want to do the fucking trope shit, but yeah. Yaptın mı yemeği? Çok vay be. Kaya, what are you doing? Bu perfect olmuş baba. I don't know, brother. When I was in Iraq, they said Aloha snack bar and bad stuff happened when I was doing imperialism. Yeah, like that one vet who's like, listen, for folks, for all the folks out there wondering, waiting, you hear Aloha snack bar and you know some shit's about to pop off, okay? You already know, brother. Is that lahmacun? No, not. It is not lahmacun. It's just my specialty. It's just chicken that's like chopped up very aggressively, and then cooked in peppers and onions, and then I make like it kind of looks like a chorizo, and then I make a little wrap every day. This is what I eat every day, boys. You don't know. My shit. Anyway, so happy I got mac and cheese with ribs. God damn. Let John McCain teach these kids. Oh yeah, I mean here, even fucking everyone's favorite John McCain. Here it is.
Well, listen to this video, Senator McCain, of a Syrian, it looks like a fighter jet being shot out of the sky. Listen to what they say afterwards. Allahu Akbar! Allahu Akbar! I have a problem helping those people out if they're screaming that after a hit.
Would you have a problem with American and Christians saying thank God, thank God? That's what they're saying. Come on, for someone to say Allah Akbar is about as offensive as someone saying thank God.
General Dempsey came out. Well, listen to this.
I love that he immediately tries to swap it and it's like General Dempsey came out. It's like, you fucking asshole. When you're getting outflanked by John motherfucking McDonald McCain over here, you didn't expect that. That's a classic. When they were saying Obama is an Arab and a Muslim, John McCain had that classic, like, no, he's not. He's a good man. He's not an Arab. He's a good man. Anyway, all right, let's talk about the Qatari official says the second round of hostages and prisoner exchange is back on. This is from 1 hour ago. after they paused it for a brief moment, let's take a look at the latest updates here. Yesterday, or in between yesterday and today, the second round of hostage release was slated to happen, except the Israeli government, according to Hamas, has not followed on the conditions of the hostage release, including but not limited to, one, refusing to release the women and children by length of sentencing. That was one of the conditions. Like the longer people that have served, the faster they would get out in the first round. That didn't happen. So they said, we're going to hold off on hostages unless you fucking follow the conditions. I believe there's a 5-parter from Israeli leftist Hasanabi head, who actually looked at the conditions as to why they had stopped it, I think, or they were saying they want to, from El Nono. Here it is. Statement from the Hamas political wing media advisor Taher El Nono. Fucking hate Windows 11 so much. Here. And also, what the hell's going on? This is like not even loading. Okay. The most important things mentioned in the interview with the media advisor of the Hamas political bureau, Taher El Nono. Stop fucking spamming Nono in the chat, you sons of bitches. Yeah, how about Nono to the top of the hour ad break, which comes at the top of every hour. If you no longer want to see those ads, all you need to do is subscribe. You could do that for $5 or free with a Twitch Prime by connecting your Amazon account to your Twitch account, your Prime account to your Twitch account, or you get one free Prime subscription a month. Use it on your favorite podcast, so hopefully that's me. Here's a 3-minute ad break now. Okay. No. There are 2 opposite images since yesterday. The image of a smile and achievement in a file of male and female prisoners and stopping the killing among our people, in contrast to the occupation's violations of the agreement. The occupation opened fire on many citizens during the truce period, which led to the martyrdom of 2 citizens yesterday. So they killed 2 people in the ceasefire process. They opened live ammo. Like, they opened fire on people that were trying to make a passage back into North Gaza to get to their homes. So they shot at them, which was fucking ridiculous. Then the aid that entered the northern Gaza area is much less than what was agreed upon and must be fully adhered to. That was also premeditated. Like, they had previously talked about how much aid was going to make its way into northern Gaza. Remember, there's still civilians in northern Gaza. Okay. El Nono also said, what the criminal Zionist occupation is doing poses a threat to the implementation of the agreement and the completion of this process. The occupation's disregard for the issue of seniority in releasing prisoners puts the agreement in real danger. Another one of the aspects of the hostage release on the Israeli side was that they were supposed to release hostages that had more seniority, as in had a longer sentence that they had served out first. They, I guess, did not abide by that. On our part, we presented things that were not in the deal, such as the release of Thai workers, which was mediated by Turkey and with a Qatari role. The occupation always wants to detract from the rights of the Palestinian people, and this, for us, is unacceptable and unacceptable. These matters were reported to us by the mediators, and they are moving on them so that the occupation must adhere to the terms as we have committed to them. So basically, he just says, these matters are reported to us. This is an agreement that was made at a time when the blood of the martyrs was flowing, and this is a Palestinian right. We are still waiting for the following up on the implementation of each clause of the agreement in detail. We send a message to the occupation and UNRWA in particular, which had a role in disrupting the agreement and delaying the arrival of aid, and any excuses are unacceptable. The occupation has sold its fans many illusions since the beginning of the war and has not succeeded in achieving any of its goals. The rest of it is like propaganda saying, Israel sucks, yada, yada, yada. Isn't that kind of insane? What if Israel simply resumes the bombing? Wouldn't that be an L for them? So one thing to remember, and Rashid Khalidi had a conversation with Jeremy Scahill and Murtaza on The Intercept, on the Intercepted podcast, which I was listening to earlier. Rashid Khalidi, of course, is a Palestinian historian scholar, Edward Said scholar, and he has written 100 Years of War in Palestine. Amongst, he's a great historian. And they addressed some of these things where they were talking about, like, do you think that they asked Jeremy Scahill asked them, like, do you think that these were goals that Hamas actually accomplished? Like, what were Hamas's goals in your opinion? Obviously, he doesn't fucking know, but he's like purely speculating, in which he openly mentioned. But I think he brought up some really interesting points about the fact that Like, of course, Hamas understands that there is going to be violent retaliation, and they're ready for it in the sense that like they knew that this was going to happen, and ultimately they knew that Israel's reaction would create an environment where they're less sympathetic. So I think this unironically, this kind of stuff unironically, and like Israel's behavior throughout this entire process is basically causing them to lose more support. No matter how much mainstream media pushes a certain angle, I think people still recognize the disproportionate acts of violence and start asking more questions about the situation, and that and the death and devastation is avoidable as long as Israel chooses to not be super violent. But of course, they are still behaving in a super violent fashion. This is what the Israeli Broadcasting Corporation, according to the informed source, the Israeli side says the release of the according to seniority was not a commitment, but rather just talk. So one thing that he brought up that I think is interesting, one thing that he brought up was that one thing that he brought up that I thought was interesting was the fact that hold on. Was the fact that this completely fucking shatters any remaining fractional power that the Palestinian Authority might have ever had in the eyes of the Palestinians. Right? Just eviscerates it, destroys it. And he's right about that. Like, that's why you see when the prisoners are being released on the Israeli side, like they ask them, so how do you think? And their immediate response is like, thank God for Al-Qassam brigades. Thank God for Hamas. Thank God for all of them. And of course they feel that way because they think Hamas is the reason as to why they were released. And these are fucking people in the West Bank. Like, these are supposed to be people that are the most loyal to Fatah. And they're not. And the reason for why they're not is because Fatah put them in jail or played a role in putting them in jail. Whereas in their minds, Hamas played a role in getting them out of prison. So, ultimately it's more about who's collaborating with the occupation, with the belligerent occupation that is violent and destructive, and who is fighting against it, no matter what the reaction, no matter what the retaliation is. And that is, in my opinion, important to understand because this is yet another circumstance of like Israel losing the political battles, right? Like, these are things you need to understand. These are things you need to understand. These are things you need to comprehend. Like, they might not agree with the things that Hamas are doing. Some of them don't acknowledge that, like, the militants actually went and killed civilians and stuff like that. But ultimately, in their eyes, like, these guys are certainly the ones who are playing a significant role in their release. And it's important to recognize that because, you got the New York Times writing dumb shit like this. Can the Palestinian Authority really govern Gaza after the war? I guess they'll probably openly state that that's not going to happen, right? Because the Palestinian Authority is the only political entity that is less popular. Like, in the eyes of the Palestinians, if you ask them, obviously Israel is the least popular political entity in the region because it's the apartheid regime. Palestinian Authority is the second least popular political entity in the region. And then it's Hamas. And Hamas isn't necessarily majority popular. Its actions might be, but they're not broadly popular by any means necessary. It's just that they are more popular than the Palestinian Authority right now. As a matter of fact, they're more popular in the Palestinian Authority. It's pretty funny. They're more popular in Hamas is more popular in the West Bank than they are in Gaza. Which partially is because, like, obviously, the reason why they're more popular in the West Bank than Gaza is because, like, people in the West Bank are not governed under Hamas rule, and they only see the violent retaliation that Hamas engages in on their behalf, which is the reason why they're, like, probably more popular in the West Bank than they are in Gaza. Where where in Gaza they also have to, they also live under Hamas rule, so that's probably the reason. So what hope do we have? Because Israel will never let Hamas run stuff. It doesn't have to be Hamas. But Israel's actions are directly contributing. The reason why I'm showing all of this is because Israel's actions are directly contributing to more popularity for violent resistance and Hamas specifically.
Start our breaking news coverage this hour with Hamas announcing a delay in the release of more hostages, accusing Israel of violating key terms of the agreement. Let's get right to NBC News correspondent David Noriega on the ground in Jerusalem for us. And David, I understand you just got in some news from the Qataris on this standoff that we're seeing at this hour.
Yeah, Richard, that's right. Big development from just the last couple of minutes. Spokesperson for the Qatari Foreign Ministry has released a public statement saying that the release of hostages is back on. They say that diplomatic efforts by Qatar and Egypt have persuaded Hamas to release the agreed upon hostages. I should say we also got a statement to that effect directly from Dr. Bassem Naim. He is a member of Hamas leadership. He is also saying that the release is back on, is also crediting diplomatic efforts by Qatar and Egypt. According to the statement from the Qatari Foreign Ministry, we're looking at 13 Israeli hostages released for 39 Palestinian prisoners. These are the same numbers we saw last night. Again, not counting the, of course, 11 Thai and Filipino hostages that were released, in addition to the 13 Israeli
separate
hostages. So we still haven't heard from the Israeli side. We're waiting for a press conference to start from the IDF. We may hear confirmation from them, but we at least have from those two sources as of right now that the release is back on. Things are changing quickly. This is very fluid, but that is the information we have for the time being. Richard.
Yeah, it's been very clear through your reporting and others here, David, that this deal is quite fragile. It is day to day. And just hours ago, dig down for us in terms of what we understood as to why we hadn't seen this exchange happen at this late hour there in Israel and Gaza.
Right. So what we understand about why that delay happened came from the Hamas side. They were saying that Israel had failed to abide by a couple of specific points on its side of the commitment to the agreement.
By the way, David Noriega is the guy who was like, yeah, this doesn't seem like in the Al Ahli hospital. He was the one who was on MSNBC going like, yeah, this is a little ridiculous to fucking not assume that this is yet another Israeli strike.
Agreement. Specifically, they said that Israel had not allowed the passage of enough aid trucks into Gaza. They say the number of aid trucks that entered was less than the amount that had been agreed upon. They also said that Israel had not abided by the terms of the release of prisoners from Israeli prisons, Palestinian prisoners from Israeli prisons. They say that the agreement was that the prisoners would be released according to how long they had been in prison, and that they had left in prison some people who had been in prison for many years, and instead released some people who had been in prison for only months. Those were the sort of finer points of what Hamas was saying previously had delayed this release. But again, now Hamas is saying that the release is back on. Richard?
Hamas is saying that the release is back on. Through the Qataris is where we're hearing this at this hour. And was there any concern as we looked at this that this deal, because of the...
What about the Palestinians who kill LGBT members? Yeah, you're right. I think we should jail those guys, except if we're jailing people that have killed like gay Palestinians, I'm assuming the entire IDF has to be fucking directly put to prison, right? Like who do you think is killing more gay people? Like, who do you think is killing more gay Palestinians? Like the Israeli occupation or Hamas? Same talking points over and over again. I know. It's like, listen, guys. I know the previous, like, Hamas's ISIS stuff didn't stick. Especially now that, like, the same government that said they're ISIS and we have to, like, eviscerate them and we can't negotiate with them are negotiating successfully with them. So now we just have to move on to, like, well, they're homophobic. Okay? You know? Hamas targets LGBT, but Israel bombs indiscriminately. Exactly. Like, what kind of fucking take is this? I hate the, like, gay imperialism nonsense from all of you. I don't agree with Hamas's perspective on the world, guys. It doesn't matter to me. And it doesn't matter to many others, because what's right is right and what's wrong is wrong. The occupation is wrong. The apartheid state is wrong. It must come to an end so that Palestinians can democratically organize and fight for their own civil liberties. It's that simple.
Delay today that it could have fallen through. We're only on day 2 of this truce.
Concern, yes, for sure, Richard. I mean, the attitude that people here in Israel and also people in the West Bank whom I've been talking to have about this agreement in general is that nothing is real until we actually see it happen, right? The hostages are not released until we actually see them in Israeli custody, and the prisoners are not released until we actually see them, on the streets of the West Bank. This is very minute by minute. Everything, there are all sorts of expectations, but it's an extremely delicate tightrope walk. The general sense is that it could fall apart at any moment. I will say, just having been reporting on this from the ground for the last several days, tonight was the first moment where it really felt like things were going off track. And if one thing goes off track, the entire thing can go off track. But again, I just want to restate, we're hearing from a member of Hamas leadership, Dr. Bassem Naim, and we're hearing from the Qatari Foreign Ministry that for now, things are back on track.
That's good.
On track. So this assumes then that the concerns they had before have been alleviated in some way, and we don't have any information on the alleviation of those concerns. For instance, the hundreds of trucks that were supposedly going to be moving into Gaza each and every day. Is that correct?
That's exactly correct. There is some wording in the statement that we received from this member of Hamas leadership that says that they recognize a commitment from the Israeli side to the agreed upon terms. What the exact details of that commitment are is not clear at this moment.
Damn, that
Israeli
outro song
officials say
was crazy.
today 14 hostages and 42 prisoners will be released on day 2 of the ceasefire between Israel and Hamas. On Friday, the first 24 hostages, including small children and grandmothers, crossed to safety 7 weeks after Hamas militants.
Of course, it's not the same. What did you expect? The prisoners are people who did some sort of act of violence, and the hostages? That's not true. That's not true. You're wrong about that. You're absolutely wrong about that. This is literally objectively untrue. The only way that you can try to frame it in this way, the only way you can try and frame it in this way is because, like, you think it's okay to torture and extract your concession out of... Wait, what? Oh, you're just repeating. Chair camp. I love seeing chair. You think it's okay to... yeah, this guy... Like, it's there's going to be a lot of, like, weird trolls that come in here today and just, like, repeat stuff that I've said as though it's an own, because they're just objectively bad people in general. Regardless, what's important here is to understand that the position that they're taking is to violently torture toddlers for crimes that they are either suspected of doing or sometimes openly not even convicted of doing, okay? The example that this person is making fun of is literally one that we've covered before, one that I talked about already. The example is the 13-year-old who was interrogated after his 15-year-old cousin and himself ran around and his 15-year-old cousin stabbed a 13-year-old Israeli kid and a 20-year-old. Neither of them died, luckily. The 15-year-old cousin was shot and killed on the spot. The 13-year-old, who did not stab anyone, who was also running around with their 15-year-old cousin, was ran over by a car. He's been in prison for the past 9 years. Okay? If you think that a 13-year-old who was running around with their 15-year-old cousin with a knife should be tortured, ran over with a car, and then interrogated immediately after that, yes, Ahmad Mansara, and placed in solitary confinement, you are a freak. You are literally a freak. It is also illegal to do that, for the record. There are, luckily, human rights, international humanitarian law. The reason why people are coming in here is because I responded like this to one of these fucking supposedly apolitical freaks. I said, indefensible monsters. The Quds News Network. Ahmad Mansara was kidnapped 8 years ago when he was only 13 years old. This leaked video shows an Israeli officer interrogating him. This is how the Israelis treat Palestinian children. He said, amazing journalism, Hassan. I said, you think it's okay to torture and extract the confession out of a 13-year-old, you depraved freak? Do you know anything about this case? He was run over by a car before this. His 15-year-old cousin who stabbed 2 people was shot dead on the spot. He was interrogated without his parents present. He was interrogated without a lawyer present. Immediately after being run over with a car, he had wounds on his head. It is completely and utterly ridiculous. But of course, you can very clearly go, well, he was stabbing people, which he wasn't. He objectively was not. He ran around and stabbed people. He did not. Here's the Associated Press story that summarizes it. And I also linked the Amnesty International plea to release Ahmad from solitary confinement and the prison that he's been in, where he basically grew up from 13 to, I guess now, since 2015. Been 8 years. No, the thing is, he wasn't even falsely accused of the stabbing. The Israeli courts literally found that he did not participate in the stabbings. There was no like blood on his knife or anything like that. He's serving a 9.5-year sentence for attempted murder. It's fucking ridiculous. And people's unironic positions at this point are just like, there's even a video after he got hit with the car where people are shouting for him to die. It's horrific stuff. Yeah, like, this is a kid, dude. This is a kid. I hope people understand this. This is a 13-year-old, okay? If a 13-year-old Israeli did the same thing, I still would not think that it would be appropriate to fucking torture them and put them in solitary confinement or have the goddamn Supreme Court post hoc slap together a new law that they literally apply after they pass the law so that he could be held indefinitely at the age of 13. Like a new terrorism designation was given to child terrorists that they retroactively applied to Ahmad. It's fucking nuts. And I don't know what this dude's like personal politics are, but I don't think he's like anti-Palestinian. I don't know what the fuck's going on there. But it is very shocking to me that like these guys will literally take any position they can because they probably think, I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. And this makes it seem like Ahmad Manasra was like completely fucking living his life and then that was just like ripped off the streets or something. I guess that's the reason where a lot of people just like farm this thinking that like I don't know what I'm talking about, despite the fact that I talked about it on stream. You're replying to a guy who cares more about YouTuber drama than anyone dying. They have no sympathy. It's just like shocking to me that this is it's shocking, I guess, more so to me that this is like a farming operation that works. You know what I mean? And I think it's mostly because I suspect he didn't fucking know the full details and saw something on Reddit and thought, oh, this is a good opportunity to strike without like reading up on it again. Or even if now he's read up on it, he probably can still try and justify it by being like, look at the video. He's running around with a knife. A 13-year-old under no circumstances should be put under this condition, okay? There's no world in which this is appropriate or acceptable. It's not morally permissible, and it's also not legally permissible either. You know? The reason why I'm bringing this up, though, is because while this dipshit doesn't have any real politics associated with it and is just simply trying to drama bait and drama farm, there are, however, plenty of people who do legitimately have a political, ideological position and have been screaming about screaming from the rooftops about how all of these people that are being released that are prisoners, and actually they're prisoners because of crimes. Okay? What is this? Even more horrific example of this is the imprisonment of Isra Jabis, whose vehicle was shot up by the IDF until it burned down. She wasn't allowed any help or medical care until 60% of her body was burned off. She only received painkillers and no attention for her amputated fingers and is still in solitary confinement. I haven't seen that. Your haters' absolute contempt for you. Blot out any logical fact that counters our argument. I hate it. I know. I don't think that victims should be perfect. I don't think that the occupation demands that victims are perfect. They're not. Regardless, though, your expectation should not be that, like, these are perfect victims. Your expectation should be to abide by at least some standards that show a semblance of morality when incarcerating a fucking 13-year-old. Okay? In that situation, the 13-year-old with a knife is not the animal. The whole-ass adult and the entire structure that imprisoned him and placed him in solitary confinement and broke him and developed where he developed schizophrenia, that is the animalistic, barbaric structure. Okay? A 13-year-old is innocent, man. Fucking ridiculous. Anyway, here, no caller ID. Nice pictures on the beach today. Who is this? I am nobody. Can you post a story where you condemn Hamas so this can all end?
Hello.
Hello.
Hello, Mutaz. How are you?
I'm fine.
Fine. Fine day to go to the beach. Lovely.
So this is like, this is probably some fucking random dickhead, for the record. I don't think that this is the IDF. I think this is some random dickhead who found his phone number and is like harassing a dude who's constantly living under the threat of drones and IDF rockets for the crime of course, being Palestinian and also being a journalist inside of Gaza.
Lovely.
Yeah, that's lovely.
Hmm?
Yeah, how are you?
Yeah, another stabbing case detainee released. I shared pics. I shared on Reddit, and Reddit didn't like it. Yeah, woman reunites with her mother. She was captive by occupiers for 2,966 days. So, she is she's the woman that was released, right? This is the other woman. You saw the video of it. Okay. By the way, don't fucking send your Reddit bullshit here, okay, to get me to defend it. Like, yeah, Reddit is a shithole. You should know that. That should be your starting position, and you should be aware that it's just gonna suck, okay? If you have a better article on what she did, we can cover that. But as far as I understand, that woman specifically, okay, that woman specifically was arrested and was permanently jailed, basically indefinitely held in indefinite detention for the crime. No, that's not the woman with the fingers cut off. I don't know that story. I've just read it in the chat. But that woman basically was placed in involuntary or indefinite detention for the crime of having a settler claim that she wanted to stab someone. They didn't find any evidence whatsoever. Just a settler at a bus stop said she wants to stab people, and everyone was afraid of her. So they fucking apprehended her. Okay? That's it. In prison for fucking 6 years. Israeli detention for 6 years. She was 16 years old. Okay? 16 fucking years old. It's ridiculous. Except it doesn't matter. Like, there are people that are going to be released. There are people that are going to be released that have done shit, right? Like Ahmed is a great is a good example of someone who is not like perfectly innocent, except they're 13, so they're as close to perfectly innocent as you possibly can get. Okay? He was running around with a knife with his 15-year-old cousin. But the idea that a 13-year-old deserves to be tortured and placed under indefinite detention and also solitary confinement, like, that's crazy. That's just unacceptable. You're a sicko. Family celebrates the return of freed Palestinian prisoner Marah Bakir. Bakir is one of the 39 prisoners released by Israel in exchange for 13 Hamas captives under a Qatar-mediated deal. Jerusalem, with tears of joy rolling down her cheeks and a look of utter disbelief, Sassam Bakir ran down a flight of steps. Marah is one of the 39 Palestinian women. I told you Marah is beautiful, Sassam told journalists as she hugged her daughter and showered her with endless kisses. Not because she's my daughter, really, but Marah is beautiful. You just got to see for yourself. Before her imprisonment, she was a 16-year-old high school student at the Al Maimuna school in occupied East Jerusalem's Sheikh Jarrah neighborhood. Every day, she would make her way from her family home in Beit Hanina to school, crossing an expressway that runs between East and West Jerusalem. While on her way, on October 12, 2015, Israeli forces shot and arrested her for allegedly attempting to stab an Israeli officer. Bakir and her family denied the accusations. When she was arrested, Bakir was lying on the pavement with 12 gunshot wounds to her arm and hand, which have left her with permanent damage. She was sentenced to 8 years and 6 months in prison. And a child, when imprisoned, Bakir was due to complete her sentence and return home in 4 months' time. I needed my mother's love. Newly freed, Bakir told Al Jazeera that her time in prison was hard, but she had endured it with her faith in God and the support of her family and fellow Palestinian prisoners. There were many difficult times in prison, but just like anyone else going through life, they passed. Prison was especially difficult because I was young when I was jailed and I needed my mother's love and my family's support. Although there are many fellow prisoners who took care of me and helped me, nothing can replace a mother's love. About 8,000 Palestinians remain in jail, including the 3,000 who have been detained over the past 7 weeks amid an increasing number of armed Israeli raids across the West Bank. Okay? And there's no celebrations. Ahead of Bakir's release, her family said they did not have any information about when she would be coming home, but they knew that if the Israeli occupying force stormed your house, that meant that you're most likely going to have your relative, come home. How fucked up is that? They literally fucking stormed the houses of the Palestinian prisoners that they were releasing, like the family members of the Palestinian prisoners they were releasing. Yeah, the announcement is the occupation storming your house. How fucked up is that? Israeli forces also blocked all entry to the neighborhood where Bakir's family is located. They have stationed soldiers in front of the house, ensuring no groups can gather. The 17-year-old girl released yesterday. The 17-year-old prisoner Zaina Abdo was detained by the Zionist entity for incitement on social media. I don't know what her charges were, but if you have an article, that would be better. But yeah, I remember the details of this one specifically because I remember they said when you hear her name mentioned on Israeli Twitter, they're like, oh, she was trying to stab people. But when you look at the details of the case, remember, this is the occupying force. They fucking do not, under any circumstance, ever hold a consistent principle or or uphold habeas corpus and regular due process in their treatment under the court system for Palestinians as they do for Israelis. So just, something to remember. And there are so many instances like this. There are so many. Here's Adamir, the Palestinian prisoner organization that wrote about this in 2017. Jerusalemite child received sentence of 8.5 years. Palestinian child Marah Bakir has been sentenced by an Israeli court to 8.5 years in prison, including 10,000 NIS fine. Marah Bakir is a 17-year-old girl from the city of Jerusalem, was arrested on October 10th, 2015, after she was shot 10 times in her left arm by an Israeli soldier. According to an affidavit, Marah was not carrying anything, and when the soldier asked her to raise her hand, she did so, but he pushed her, which made her fall on the ground. When the police attended the scene, a police officer pushed her to the ground again, causing her to hit her head with the ground. The police officer started searching her body with his hands, took her headscarf off, and took her clothes off until he reached her underwear. She was later transferred in a degrading manner by an ambulance to Hadassa Ain Karem while she was left without clothing despite her request to cover her body. Later, an investigator from the police attended the hospital while she was naked and her body bleeding and asked her if she tried to stab a soldier, which she denied. Later, she was forced to enter the operating room without being informed of the nature of the operation or her medical status. She was then put in a room with her hand and leg tied to the bed all the time, with the presence of 2 male guards who cursed her and her mother repeatedly. One of the guards told her to die, and another guard took a selfie with her against her will. Marah was taken to the court on a wheelchair with the legs cuffed, and currently she's suffering from fractures in her arm. She got shot 12 times in her fucking arm. Why? Suspicion that she might want to stab someone. You think that shit's all right? I don't think it is. No due process. And that's like, but that is yet another number. In the eyes of the broader ultra-Zionists, ultra-nationalists, people who are defending Israel, she's another terrorist. They say, if you want to understand like where this mentality comes from, I'm explaining it to you. People look at that and go, well, she's yet another terrorist. She probably did want to stab someone. She probably, even if she didn't have a knife, if she did, she might have stabbed someone. And that's why it's okay. It's okay to fucking apprehend her as such and shoot her. Because it's just straight up disregard for the humanity of these people that live under a brutal occupation. Okay? Think about that. 16 years old. Shot. Degraded. Humiliated. Tortured. Shot. All of this is well documented, by the way. Just so you understand.
Triggered the war after they stormed southern Israel, killing 1,200 people and abducting 240 others. Also on Friday, Israel released 39 Palestinian women and teenage boys from prison as part of the temporary truce, which calls for the release of 150 Palestinians over the coming days. The deal also allowed humanitarian groups to scale up delivery of critical supplies into the Gaza Strip. For the first time in weeks, aid reached northern Gaza. Lilia Luciano is in Tel Aviv. Lilia, good morning.
Good morning to you, Michelle. Look, those are all crucial and historic developments, but both sides have made it clear that the war is not over. Still here in Hostage Square, the focus is on receiving that next group of hostages with open arms. The first 24 of some 240 hostages taken by Hamas were released Friday. Videos like this one of 9-year-old Ohad Munder stepping into a Red Cross truck, the first proof of life family could believe.
By the way,
I'm waiting to see Ohad, and I can't wait to give him his Rubik's Cube, which I know he really loved, and he probably missed it so much. And that's the first thing he takes everywhere he goes.
Ohad ran.
Why are you watching CBS to see what lies look like? Yes, I'm watching American Western news because I want to understand what the Western world is seeing and how they are covering this story.
And to his father's arms, though his grandfather.
It's I mean, this is a beautiful sight regardless. It's just, I wish that it was one that they offered to Palestinians as well.
Father is still captive, but after 49 days held.
But like, ultimately, it's not one that will ever be afforded to the Palestinians. It's also being deliberately tampered and squashed. The Israeli government is basically fucking, stopping any kind of mention from the Palestinian side that shows their humanity from going out there. And not only that, but if you look on Twitter, the Israeli side, at the very least, like the ultra-nationalists who are defending the Israeli occupation, for example, have been abhorrent in their display of racism and dehumanizing rhetoric towards Palestinians, as they just fucking straight up deny humanity to any of the people, the hostages that were released from the Israeli side, and just straight up claim that every single person that was released is actually a terrorist and should not have ever been released. You know?
Family reunions are underway for these 6 Israeli elderly women, 4 children, their mothers, and 11 Thai and Filipino freed hostages who made it from Gaza into Egypt and finally across the border into Israel, where the children were handled by soldiers and experts instructed to minimize the shock of the shift. And what is essential in that care?
The safest, least overwhelming surrounding. We should take into account the fact that they have most probably been held in darkness. There is no electricity and they probably have been kept in the tunnels. So even seeing light, noises would be very frightening. They should be handled like the tiniest baby.
In exchange, Israel released 39 children and women held in their jails. Upon their arrival in the West Bank, parents overwhelmed with relief embraced their children, as did the public, defying a ban the Israeli government placed on any celebration for their freedom. The government of Israel, Egypt, and their families already know who will be released today. We, of course, won't know for sure until those next images emerge of that handover. Dana?
All right, Lily, so much emotion on both sides. Thank you very much. President Biden says the hostage release is only a start and expressed hope that the truce will be extended and the Americans being held will soon be released. The president praised U.S. diplomacy in achieving.
I mean, I'll take both sides coverage, dude. Are you kidding me? It's so fucking loud outside, by the way. I don't know if you guys can hear it, but Murad is operating some fucking power tools like directly outside of the fucking room, and I can't even hear myself think, really.
Achieving the temporary halt in fighting, but faced pro-Palestinian demonstrators while attending a Christmas tree lighting ceremony in Nantucket. Mr. Biden is spending the holiday weekend on the island with family. CBS News senior White House correspondent Weijia Jiang is traveling with the president. Weijia, good morning.
Dana, good morning to you and good morning to everybody. The Biden family actually attends that tree lighting ceremony here in Nantucket every year, but this year, organizers had to pause the event to ask those protesters to stop shouting.
Damn, this guy's good.